Hello everyone, welcome to another Stukent Expert session. Trevor Erickson here again with Stukent, and today I'm excited for us to learn all about link building with Ryan Joos of Nifty Marketing. Ryan is going to share the why and the how for link building, plus share a list of effective link building strategies. So without any further ado, let's turn the time over to Ryan and have him share why clean link building is one of the most important Google ranking factors.
All right. Well, thank you, Trevor. I'm super grateful to be here. This is a really cool opportunity. And if you're here and you're listening, I hope that you are really grateful for this opportunity, not necessarily because I'm presenting, but because you are a part of Stukent, and that's a wonderful opportunity. Stukent is such a cool program. It's something that I wish had been around more when I was studying marketing to begin with. Would have been a great way to get a solid foundation to start. So today I'm going to be talking about successful link building strategies. And this is really important. It's important even if you're not necessarily doing SEO yourself. Understanding the processes of how to be able to build up a site's authority is extremely important, extremely valuable. There's a lot of skill sets that I've acquired over the years that I don't necessarily use on a daily basis myself, but I still consider them extremely important because they help me be able to collaborate well with the team here at Nifty. I'll go ahead and just jump right in. I'm Ryan. It's good to meet you. I'm born and raised Idaho Falls, Idaho. Went to school at BYU, Idaho. Graduated with my degree in web design and development, and then here I am here now at Nifty. This is a slide just to kind of help you get to know me a little bit more. This is my wife. This is my child. I love to play guitar. I love playing ukulele. Occasionally I dress up as Nacho Libre. It's, just kind of what I do. So story time. All right, I served my mission in Atlanta, Georgia, came home, got married, went and sold pest control. It was hot, it was sweaty, it was awful, but taught me some very important things, mainly, how to sell. There was one day in particular that I was sick of knocking doors. It was so hot in Indianapolis where I was knocking, and I just decided, you know what? Instead of being out in the steps, I'm going to throw up an ad on Craigslist for pest control. So I did that, right? I put this ad up on Craigslist, and people called. And what I loved about it was the people who were calling me were actually interested in what I had to offer. Whereas when I was knocking on the door, sometimes I'd be interrupting them. They didn't wake up that morning planning to buy pest control. They weren't quite ready sometimes to purchase. So I loved when people called me because I knew they were interested already in what I had to offer. Now fast forward to, probably about a year later, I was working at an e-commerce company where we sold shoes. And I attended a conference, kind of a web marketing conference, and Stuart Draper, one of the founders there of Stukent, spoke, and he talked about PPC. And also, my current boss, Mike Ramsey, spoke about SEO, and I was fascinated. I was like, this is exactly what I did with my Craigslist ad, essentially. Not quite, but essentially, inbound marketing was kind of what it was all about, and I just thought it was so awesome. And at this conference, my current boss showed this slide, right? Showed this image about Nifty marketing, and I just thought, this is so cool. Not only is like SEO and SEM and PPC things I'd love to do, but I'd love to work for Nifty in particular because there was just something about their story that really gelled with me. I thought this was so funny, and I still do, frankly. And so I was like, these are my people. This is exactly what I want to do. Now, during this time, I was studying all about SEO and everything that I could possibly learn. I was implementing it with my own company, and I was doing a lot of research. And this is pretty much the information that I found outside of this conference. I was studying on Moz and other reputable SEO blogs, and this is the things that I heard essentially. All you need, or should be focusing on, is creating good quality content. This is a bit of an oversimplification, I realize, but when it comes right down to it, that was essentially the advice that was being given by everyone. And it's kind of interesting because good quality content, that term is so subjective and it's kind of difficult, and maybe during that time, maybe when these things were being presented, that is really all that it took. But one of the issues that I'm running into now, and the issues that a lot of people who come to me, right? And one of the common questions that I hear from people, from potential clients, people who just aren't getting as much as they want out of their internet marketing campaigns, they say, my content is way better than my competitors. Why am I not ranking? Right? These frustrated business owners are coming to me and they're saying, I'm doing good quality content, just like every SEO in the world told me to do back in 2012. Why am I not ranking? And this is what I show them. Right? I show them an image of an iceberg, and we all understand this analogy. Right? The thing that they are seeing, the thing that they are understanding is what's above the surface. But in reality, there's a lot more to what's going on that may not be as seen as easily. And that's something that we have to understand. So one thing I want to make sure is, don't get me wrong, content is important. Having good quality content is still something that you should focus on, but really it's only step one. And it begs the question, but is good quality content all you need? Let's find out. Let's do a test, right? So here's the test that we're going to run. We're going to look at a result for a particular term that's on page 1, and we're going to compare that to the content to a result that's on page 5. And we're going to see, is there a difference in the quality of content, and can we say that's what's making the difference in the way they're performing in search results? So some of the parameters of this test that we're going to run, we're going to do it in an incognito Chrome browser. It's my personal favorite. I love Chrome. We're going to use Bright Local's local search result checker. We're going to do that because I'm going to do the search in an area, and I want to do it as if I actually lived and was searching for that term in that particular area. So it's going to be kind of some local results essentially. And then I'm going to use Moz on-page grader as essentially a third-party objective resource to define the quality of content. So this is the SERP that I'm going to compare. This is a term that I know particularly well. It is a fairly competitive term. It's Atlanta car accident lawyer. And I've sliced up the SERP, but here is a result that's on page 1. In fact, it's the #1 organic result for this particular term. And then on the right is a result that is on page 5. And it was in the middle of page 5. It was fairly randomly selected. I saw that they put the phone number in the title. I thought that was interesting, so I decided to select them. But the websites that I'm going to compare are forthepeople.com and grantlaws.com. So let's look at page 5 first. Right? So here's their web page. Here's a screenshot of it. And we're going to talk about some of the SEO factors on here. There's several things that I think they could be doing better. And I'm not going to get too much into that because there's a lot of other resources that can kind of tell you about what they might be able to improve as far as on-site optimization that could be more effective. But this is kind of what we're going to look at. Right? They have 1,500 words of content on there, so a pretty long, in-depth article, you could argue. The word Atlanta is used 10 times in the content. Car is used 22. Accident is used 55 times. Attorney is used 8 times, right? So based on what you might read in other on-site optimization articles on the web, you can logically say this is a pretty good article, or a pretty good landing page, excuse me. It seems to have the right kind of word count, has that kind of content in there, telling Google exactly what the content is about. Looks pretty good. So using our third-party objective resource, we're going to kind of grade essentially this web page. And according to Moz, and their on-page grader, the grade that they would give this particular page for Atlanta car accident lawyer is a B. So there's a lot of different things that maybe they could improve, but all in all, it looks like it's a pretty good resource on this particular topic. Now let's look at the one that's on page 1. www.forthepeople.com/Atlanta/car accident lawyer. And let's go ahead and let's take a look at the content that's on this page. 1,200 words, so less than the other one. Atlanta is used 12 times, car is used 12 times, accident is used 17 times, attorney is used 21 times. Right, so this content is obviously focused on car accidents, attorneys, and Atlanta. Google is going to understand that. They're going to understand the purpose of this page, right? But, from a very subjective opinion, as I've read through the content that's on both of these pages, I'm going to say the winner is grantlaw.com, grantlawoffice.com. I'm going to say that content, in my opinion, answered more questions, was more helpful, was better written. That's my personal opinion. Let's see what Moz says. They gave this particular page a C, right? That's the grade that they would give them based on their different factors that they use to grade these things. So, that's kind of what we're looking at. According to Moz, grantlawoffice.com, the one on page 5, is better content. It has gooder quality content than the other one. But one's on page 1, one's on page 5. Let's look at the other half, not even the other half, the other 80% essentially of the iceberg. Backlink comparison. This is a screenshot from one of my favorite SEO tools. It's Ahrefs. And it's going to look at this particular page from grantlawoffice.com. And there's a lot of information that's in here. It gives a URL and a domain rating. It's kind of like Moz's page and domain authority, essentially. And the domain rating that it gives grantlawoffice.com is 45. And according to its tools, which aren't necessarily perfect, but I think is a pretty good resource, there are 12 backlinks from 6 referring domains. Pretty good. On paper, this is looking like a pretty good resource. The one below, this result here down below, is of the entire domain, not necessarily that specific page. And according to this information, there is over 7,000 backlinks, 370 referring domains, and there are 880 keywords, or things that would bring up this site in search results. So pretty good. From my opinion, I'd say that's a pretty solid backlink profile. Now let's take a look at the competitors once again. ForThePeople.com, or Morgan & Morgan is the particular law firm. According to Ahrefs, this particular page has a domain rating of 57, 78 backlinks, 18 referring domains. This particular page performs for 304 organic keywords. The domain in general, which is what the information below is for, has over 134,000 backlinks and 4.3 thousand referring domains. Really, really impressive and a big difference. Now we're going to kind of go over the same information, not to beat the dead horse, I apologize, but this is kind of a visual representation of the site's backlink profile, and this is a screenshot from a tool that I like to use called Cognitive SEO. The reason that I like to use Cognitive, I think that it does a great job of finding the backlinks that a site has, but because it has this visual representation, this is something that I'll show to potential clients to really illustrate the difference between where they are and where their competitors might be. So what are we looking at here? These little clusters here are pages that are on the website. Every little cluster is a certain page. This big one here, you can probably logically assume is the home page, which I believe that it is. And these other little clusters are just random pages throughout the site, maybe a contact us page, something of that nature. And these long lines, right, long lines with little dots on the end, those are links that are referring to or linking to those pages on the website. And the ones that are further away from the epicenter of these clusters are more authoritative, they are more influential, right? So they have a higher domain authority, maybe the page authority on those particular sites is a little higher. So as a result, they're sending more link juice, more power essentially to that web page that they're linking to. So these ones out here, these are pretty good links. This one right here is justia.com, and Justia is a legal social media platform essentially. So a pretty good one and a fairly authoritative one to have a link from. These links that are there in the middle, they're only okay links. This particular one right here is localopeninghours.com. Ever heard of it? Didn't think so. I haven't either. Not a very authoritative, not a very credible resource essentially. This, what's the word? Endorsement. There we go. This endorsement would be fairly unauthoritative and wouldn't be very influential and wouldn't help them very much in their SEO campaign. So here, once again, we're looking at this domain, grantlawoffice.com. Now let's compare it to forthepeople.com. Boom, right? That is the only word to describe what's happening here. There are so many links from so many different sites to so many pages here. It's ridiculous. And you might look at this and say, oh, well, I think that the last one had links that were more influential. They seemed like they were further from the epicenter, and you said that was a good thing, Ryan. That's true, but what's happening here is because there are so many links, they actually had to zoom out like crazy to be able to show them all. So that's what's happening here. I'd say some of these even smaller pages have more links and more authority than the entire domain for the last site that we looked at. So here's a screenshot. This is just kind of going over this, the importance of links. This is by Brian Dean and some research that Backlinko did. This graph is showing the #1 position in Google and the amount of referring domains. And according to this, the #1 position would have probably between 250 to about 300 referring domains in order to be able to perform well and perform in that #1 spot for a particular term. And over there on the right, Brian Dean says the number of domains linking to a page correlated with rankings more than any other factor. This is research that he did, and he looked into all these search results and just got information as far as what was helping them be able to perform well. And that's what he said, referring domains was one of the highest correlating factors. This is a study that was just released this month from Moz, and they talked about the importance of link in performance in local organic ranking. And they said that the #1 factor was link signals, inbound anchor text, linking domain authority, linking domain quantity, etc. The on-page signals, or the good quality content, was second, but wasn't as influential as the link signals were. So I hope that really thoroughly illustrates the importance of links. And so it probably begs the question, why? Why do Google and other search engines rely so heavily upon links? And here, once again, from the same study that Brian Dean did with Backlinko, he said, Google wants to see several different sites endorsing your page. And the more domains that link to you, the more endorsements or votes, essentially, you have in the eyes of Google. So that makes sense. There's more people who are saying this is a reputable resource on subjects X, Y, and Z. And so Google is going to rely heavily on those endorsements and reward those that have a lot of quote-unquote endorsements. As you can see here, looking back at this particular profile, there's a lot of people who have decided this site is worth linking to. It's a credible resource on whatever the subject might be. So here's the next question that these people give me. Okay, you've illustrated this issue that the other people have a solid iceberg, right? There's a lot more going behind the scenes than I realized. What can I do from these page 5 friends? And the answer is link building. And let me show you, this is another screenshot from Ahrefs. And this is a client that I have that I love, grothlaw.com, the Groth and Associates out of Toledo, Ohio. And they came to us about where that arrow is, right? And it took us a little while to get some things squared away, but eventually we started the link building. When they first came to us, they had about 40 or so referring domains, nothing really to write home about, nothing really crazy or impressive. Over time, we've been able to increase the amount of referring domains they have to nearly 300. And so that begs the question, well, what happened as a result of that? And when we first launched their page, right, so we were targeting this particular term, Toledo Personal Injury Attorney, and when we first wrote this good quality content piece, right, it landed us on page 7, right? So we had done all the things that had been recommended by all the SEOs that you're going to read about, that you're going to learn about on-site optimization, and it only landed us in page 7. Kind of disappointing, right? That's the importance of link building, because it's been able to take us from page 7 all the way to page 1, right? We're not the #1 search result yet, but we've moved significantly as a result. Also, this is another screenshot from Ahrefs, and it's not a perfect tool, but it'll calculate based on the information that it has how many organic keywords you're ranking for and doing well for. And in their eyes, when they first came to us in June or so, right, there was probably, you know, legit, based on this, I'm going to say about 150 keywords that they were doing okay for. And now they're up around 438. Big difference, big improvement that's happened over time. Now here's how it's done, and I'm going to share with you some principles essentially of link building. These are principles that I'm looking to implement for almost every link building campaign that I do. Principle number 1, I'm looking for a process that's scalable, right? I don't want just one link. I don't want a process that gets me one link. If it happens to be that link is extremely authoritative and valuable, then I'm going to go after it. But if I'm going to be building out processes, I want it to be rinse and repeat. I want it to be growable. All I need to do is outreach to another blogger. I need to do find more universities, more high schools, more something of this nature, more people in my audience, and I can get more links, right? I can use the same process again and again. Very important. My number 2 link building principle is a specific audience. So you need to identify who you want to target. An important aspect of that is it large enough? Is it worth going after? And those are questions that you kind of have to decide for yourself. It could be, no, this audience isn't very big, but I believe that having links from their sites could be very valuable. Or it could be, well, they don't have the most value necessarily in the links, but there's a lot of opportunity to get a lot of links, and that could be valuable as well. Very important is doing this and really having a specific audience that you're targeting helps you be able to cater your message and your outreach to them. If you understand what they value, then that will help you be able to understand what kind of content you can present to them, what your pitch is going to be, etc. This is kind of a sub point of that one. Make sure that this audience has a website. Very important. If you're looking for link building, you want something that's actually going to result in a link. And I'm going to be talking about an example of a time that I had a link building campaign that was less effective because the people I was reaching out to didn't really control the content on their own site. And I'll get to that a little later. 3, shareable and linkable. Right? So whatever it is you have that you're outreaching about, make sure that it's actually something that's worth linking to. Make sure that whatever it is appeals to their values, that they will be able to see the benefit in doing so, and will decide to link to you or share whatever it is that you're asking them to do. Essentially, you have to ask the question, what's in it for them, right? And this, once again, this is easier to do if you really have clearly defined your audience of who you're trying to target here. And now that I've shared with you essentially the principles, I'm going to share some strategies that I feel fit these principles extremely well, and I'm going to kind of show you how to do it step by step. So the first one that I'm going to share with you is scholarship. Then we're going to go into some content marketing with infographics and some blog posts. Here's some other examples of some great content marketing options. We're building out tools, resources, etc. And then of course guest blog posting. And I'm going to be kind of doing that in combination with my content marketing. Scholarship. Scholarship is so awesome because it's a scalable process. There's already a very specific audience. You're looking for the counselors at the universities who are in charge of disseminating scholarship information to their students. Very valuable. And this is an awesome opportunity because what's in it for them? Well, they have the opportunity to share a scholarship opportunity with their students. They're very interested in that. They love their students. It's their job. And also, it makes your company look fantastic. You look very philanthropic, very involved in the community. It's a great option for some public relations. Super high authority links. I'll talk about that a little later. And it's really pretty dang easy. It's really an easy process to be able to find universities, high schools, tech schools, colleges, etc., and just outreach to them and say, hey, we have this opportunity. You interested? Let me show you more how it's done. Just add a page on your website that they can go and they can find some information about the scholarship. This is one of my clients, Con Law Firm out of Seattle. Add an application form so students can come and they can apply to that site, or apply for your scholarship, excuse me. And here's the outreach email, essentially. This is one of my associates who is doing this. Hi, I'm Tyler. I work with this law firm or whatever company. Reaching out because we have this awesome opportunity, and then just kind of share some of the details of the scholarship. It's $1,000. Here's some of the details. If they're interested, please have them go here. Here's the link. It's super easy for you to just share this link with your students. Please do so. And that's essentially the outreach right there. What's awesome is, once again, the links that we get are super high authority, right? We have links from University of Georgia, uga.edu. Extremely valuable link, domain authority of 87. This is a screenshot from Moz Open Site Explorer. And here's just a random high school, I believe, that we got in Ohio. Domain authority of 49. Pretty solid opportunity. Content marketing. So this is another thing. I'm going to say that, this is a great method, especially if you have your audience clearly defined. You know who you're going after. You can create content that appeals to them. It might be a little bit more difficult because there is a little bit more expense and a little bit more time that needs to go into creating this content, creating the video, an infographic, a blog post, but not just a blog post, not just good quality content, something actually meaningful, something better than just good quality content that people are going to be willing to link to, helpful resources, helpful tools, etc. Let me share with you some specific campaigns that I've done with content marketing that have been very valuable. Here was an infographic that I created for a law firm out of Salt Lake City area. And my audience was mom bloggers. Mom bloggers are excellent to work with because generally they are an absolute pleasure to work with. They really are very kind. They're very active with their audiences. A lot of them have some pretty solid, pretty substantial social followings, so that's kind of an added bonus on top of everything else. The issue is that sometimes mom bloggers don't have the most authoritative sites. Kind of on average for a mom blogger, you're looking between domain authority from Moz from about like 30 to about 45. I've seen exceptions either way, but you just have to realize that there are so many mom bloggers that you could potentially outreach to, so the opportunity and the quantity is effective, and it's good to be a part of there. For this particular one, I knew this audience, I knew mom bloggers would be interested in internet and social media safety for children, right? Because I had clearly identified that audience, I was able to create content that met that need, right? That appealed to them. And it was extremely effective. My outreach to these people essentially was, hey, we've created this infographic on this particular topic. I've seen other articles on your blog that had to deal with parenting and safety and different things like that for children. So I think that it's something that you and also your audience would be very interested in. And this is something that I'm going to bring in the guest blogging aspect into. You just ask, would you be willing to share this infographic with your reader, right? Would you be willing to share this content that I've created with your readers? Oh, and by the way, if you are willing, we'd actually be interested in writing a blog post to accompany this infographic for your site. All you have to do is post it. And they say, oh, of course, I get this interesting piece of content. I don't have to do anything to be able to do it. That's what's in it for them. It's a relevant topic, and they get a great piece of content. It's fantastic. So in this outreach, we were able to get over 60 links, and we landed one from Forbes in the process. Now here's another infographic that I created I'm going to talk about. It's 3 preventable pet threats which are caused by pests. We did this for a pest control company out of Minnesota, and our audience that we initially identified was veterinarians. And we outreached to vets and just said, hey, would you share this with your, I don't know, your patients, the owners of your patients? I guess that's better to say. And the results, well, we didn't get very many links from this. What the results that we did get was a realization that vets don't update or really care about their websites. They had some web designer or web developer build them a site back in 1998 and have not updated it since. So it wasn't really the best audience because they didn't control the content on their own website. But there's an upside. We tried again. We knew that this was a good piece of content. We knew that people would be interested in this. We just had to find a different audience, essentially. And so we used the same piece of content, but instead we went after pet bloggers. Pet bloggers are extremely active in their social media and their online presence. It was a much better fit, and we were able to get quite a few links just from outreaching and writing blogs to accompany the infographic. Now here's the blog post. So I did some research and I realized that there was a lot of searches for terms that had to do with teaching children about disabilities. That's pretty awesome. Now what I could have done in this instance was I could have just said, well, let's write a blog post about this particular topic. Let's write about teaching children about disabilities or teaching children how to have empathy or towards people who are disabled, etc. I could have written a piece of content to try to target that term. The issue is that I don't really have a lot of credibility on that particular topic, and in this instance, this client that I wrote this piece of content for, or had written this piece of content for, was a disability attorney. They have a lot of experience, a lot of credibility in the field of disability, but not really so much how to teach children about people with disabilities. So we could have written this piece of content, and the thing is, no one would care. Straight up. I don't think anyone cares what their lawyer has to say about how to teach children. They don't have credibility in that particular topic. So I wanted to get credibility for this. So what I did instead of just writing it myself was I outreached to over 100 family and child therapists, and I asked them to share their thoughts on how we can best teach our children about disabilities. Awesome. So much better, right? So not only do now we have excellent content that I didn't have to write, which is fantastic in and of itself, but there's people who wrote it that actually have credibility on the particular topic. Once again, the audience for this one was mom bloggers, right? Mothers. They're involved in teaching children. I knew that this particular topic would gel with them. It's very interesting. And if you don't share it, I think there's almost a little bit of guilt, because this is such an important topic. So it was extremely effective. Outreach to a bunch of mom bloggers, and the pitch went, hey, we outreach to 100 marriage and family therapists. We have this excellent piece of content. Oh, and by the way, we have all this unused content that we didn't write in our post. If you'd be interested, we would actually write for you a completely original piece of content. Our only request is that we link back to the original project. And they're like, oh, of course, that's a fantastic project. That's totally one I'd like to be involved in. This resulted in over 75 links, including one from Huffington Post. Very effective. We have a bunch of different link building ideas. There's so many different ones out there that you can find. I shared with you just a few of my favorites. I have so many more that I'd love to share with you, but I don't want to take up your entire day. So I provided a link here that has a list that we've assembled of a bunch of different link building ideas that you can pull from. I hope you go, you check it out, you comment, you leave your feedback, you share it if you're interested. It's really a great piece of content. It's very helpful. Furthermore, I'd love it if you'd share your ideas. Right? Reach out and let me know what awesome strategies you have. Let me know what you can do with these principles that I've shared with you. It's extremely important to me. Here's my contact information. I'd love to hear from you. And no, seriously, I really mean this. I want you to share your ideas with me. That's part of the deal. I've shared with you these principles about link building. I'd love it if you came back to me with your different ideas. So thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, Stukent. I hope that you learned something and it was extremely valuable for you.